Studios. This is After 9 with Scott and Kat.
Hey friends, welcome to a very special solo Scott episode of After 9. We do these episodes from time to time when Kat and I can't be in the same room or when I want to talk about something that's a little more political. And I get a lot of DMs about these. Thank you very much, by the way, to everybody who sends them. I get articles sent to me every single day. Hey, you should talk about this or you should talk about that. But there's a couple of topics that come up a lot. So I'm going to try and cover a couple of them here today in this solo Scott episode of After 9. I was driving home from work on Friday, and I heard something that was almost bone-chilling come out of Ottawa. Listen to this.
I am more alarmed today than I was yesterday after having read the report. What is clear to me is that Justin Trudeau knew and didn't act, and Pierre Poilievre doesn't even want to know about serious allegations touching his party.
So as I'm sure you heard, a report was released. It was an intelligence report, basically. And what it did was indicate that there are at least 13 members of parliament, elected officials, who are wittingly helping foreign countries that are possibly spy assets. We don't know because we haven't seen the full report yet. So what's been offered is an opportunity for the leaders of the parties to go and read the report. Justin Trudeau has had this report for months. He didn't even acknowledge it. We didn't know it existed. The Prime Minister has been sitting on this for 2 months, and now the other leaders have been given an opportunity to read the report. So the other day, Elizabeth May, leader of the Green Party, sat down and read the report. She was cleared for security, and now she's not allowed to give away what's in the report. But she said she had no concerns. She said she has no problem sitting beside the people she sits beside in the House of Commons. Now Jagmeet Singh from the NDP has read the report, and that's very different from what Elizabeth May said. He has very serious concerns. That sounds serious to me. I'm not a huge fan of Jagmeet Singh, but when the leader of one of our federal parties comes out and says they've got serious concerns like that, I tend to believe them, especially on this topic. Now, why hasn't Pierre Poilievre read this report? You know, this is getting way too political before it even gets out of the gate. We have a very serious accusation here, everyone. Members of our government working with assets for other countries, possibly undermining our democracy or worse. We don't even know. Were they selling nuclear secrets? Were they selling schematics for new weapons? I have no idea. What's in this report? What were these people up to? It's amazing to me that we haven't found a common ground. Pierre Poilievre is taking some criticism for not wanting to view the report. His argument is that once he gets security cleared and reads the report, that basically gags him because he also has to treat it confidentially. Now, as long as he doesn't know what's in the report, he's free to comment on it. And if he happens to say something that actually is in the report, it's just anecdotal. So he doesn't want to read the report, and he does take criticism for that. I don't necessarily disagree with that criticism. I would want to know if a member of my party were compromised. But I also would understand my job as leader of Her Majesty, His Majesty's loyal opposition. You have to hold the government to account. So I kind of get it, but there's a compromise here. Doesn't need to be Pierre Poilievre that reads it. Why can't his deputy leader, Melissa Lantsman, read it? Why can't his House leader, Andrew Scheer, read it? He's a former Speaker of the House. He must have security clearance. I don't understand why it has to be the leader or no one. And if that is the case, maybe Pierre Poilievre should read it and assign all responsibility for commenting on this file to the deputy leader or the former Speaker of the House and current House leader, Andrew Scheer. I don't understand why there's no compromise here. Why are we arguing about who's looked at the report and who hasn't? The point is, it's there, it's got serious accusations, and the Prime Minister has known about it for a couple of months. Now, why would Jagmeet Singh be so concerned about this? He'd already said if any of his members are implicated, he'd turf them. That's the right thing to do. And turn it over to the RCMP because it should probably be investigated. So if he's that adamant that this needs to be dealt with by Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, I have to assume there's no New Democrat members of Parliament named in this report. Makes sense. So who is in the report? What were they doing? What are they up to? We have a right to know this information. And I understand that there's got to be some cloak of secrecy here. We have to protect confidential assets and so on and so forth. Understood. We don't want to compromise anybody's security or any future intelligence, but Canadians still have a right to know what the accusation is. Here's a little more of Jagmeet Singh.
To me, that disqualifies him as a leader, and I do not buy his phony excuses. Both Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre are putting the interests of their party ahead of the country, and that is wrong. Je suis plus inquiété aujourd'hui.
And he goes into French. It's kind of hard to disagree with Jagmeet here while we don't know what the accusation is. How many Liberals? How many Conservatives? Anybody else? Any independent members of Parliament involved here? Could it be right up into the highest levels of government? We don't know. But we should know. Why can't we know what the accusation is? It's very, very concerning. And they're going to argue about this in Ottawa, back and forth, nonstop, about who's seen the report and who hasn't seen the report, instead of actually dealing with the issue that we've got members of elected government that seem to be up to some pretty shady stuff here. What were they doing? Were they profiting from this? Did it undermine our security? What is going on here? The Prime Minister was asked about this the other day at the G7 conference. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
I'm Mr. Trudeau, Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Are there currently any MPs in your caucus that are named in the NSICOP report to be wittingly or semi-wittingly participants in foreign interference?
The issue of foreign interference is one that this government has taken incredibly seriously since 2015. We brought in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians over the objections of the Conservative Party and indeed the strenuous resistance of the Harper government for years. We brought in a renewed NSIRA for oversight over our national security instances, and we created specific bodies of experts, of top civil servants to ensure the integrity of our elections. We've also called a number of different reports, including an ongoing report on foreign interference that we're working with right now to see how they can follow up on the NSICOP report.
We've heard from Mr. Singh and Ms. May. They both said that there are no members of their party who are named in the report. So I'll ask you again, are there any current Liberal caucus members named in the NSICOP report that are wittingly or semi-wittingly participants in foreign interference?
I will allow Mr. Singh and Ms. May to speak for themselves.
That's our Prime Minister, the leader of the federal Liberal Party and our Prime Minister. Do you feel any more informed here about something that I think we all agree we should have at least a little more information about? Were any members of the Liberal Party involved? That's a very straightforward question that he can answer. Even if he doesn't want to name names, maybe that would put somebody's safety in jeopardy. We don't want that. But let's find out what went on here. Did something criminal happen here? We need to know all of this information, and I don't think anybody listens to what our Prime Minister just said there and feels more informed about this. That brings up another question. With all of the accusations that are floating around about this government, whether it be foreign interference, whether it be this security intelligence report, the file on immigration, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There are so many scandals, it's almost impossible to keep track of them all. But this government is still in power. There seems to be a bit of a misconception about government. Government, and I don't know when this changed, for the longest time, as long as I was growing up, it was very, very simple. If you won an election, you won the right to govern for up to 4 years. But it was always understood that if you fell out of favor or lost the confidence of the House and so on and so forth, we would have another election. You didn't win the right, unquestioned, to govern for 4 years. Well, now we're in a situation where we've got two parties that have teamed up, and both of them are fairly unpopular. I mean, when you look at the latest opinion polls, and you can feel however you want about polls, but it looks like right now, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are on their way to one of the biggest majorities in Canadian history. That should tell the parties that are in power, hey, people aren't liking what we're doing. It doesn't feel like we have the confidence of the country right now. For the good of the country, we should step aside and call an election. And if we read the room wrong and people love us, we'll be right back in power. But if people have a serious issue with what we're up to, well, that's a different story. We should have way more elections than we currently have. Jagmeet Singh, though, is, as the leader of the NDP, the one who's able to control a lot in Ottawa. He's not just the leader of the third party. He is the one keeping this government, this wildly unpopular government, in power so that they can give away non-answers on very, very important topics. Listen to this.
Our democracy is at stake here. So why are you continuing to prop up the government who you say isn't taking democracy seriously? Why do you continue to prop them up?
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
No,
the question
is,
to
why
me,
do you continue to prop up the government when you say our democracy is at stake and this government is not taking our democracy seriously? Why continue to back them up?
we're not at all doing that. What we're saying is we're going to demand answers. We're going to continue to push for solutions.
Well, I mean, you heard the answer from Justin Trudeau, and it wasn't an answer. Still, we are very, very in the dark about what's going on here, and it's totally okay to ask important questions. Are we safe? Did somebody really, truly sell us out? I've heard the word treason tossed around. I don't know if I would use the treason word yet. Let's find out what the accusation is, but it doesn't change the fact that we are entitled to know. We have a right to know at least what the accusation is. You know, the Prime Minister was in front of the media nonstop for a few days there. He was at a G7 conference, and instead of being accountable and telling all of us, hey, listen, serious accusations, there's 5 Liberals and 6 Conservatives, or there's 9 Liberals, 1 cabinet member, and 1 member of the opposition, whatever it is. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Here's what we're doing. Here's what the accusation is that they were selling, I don't know, AI secrets to China. We should at least be able to know that while they're trying to figure out the mechanism for how they get to the next step. Instead, Trudeau is running around numerous times with the leader of Ukraine giving away billions more dollars. I don't think we can afford that. We're in a pretty serious time here financially here in Canada. I'm all for helping out other countries who need it, but geez. Read the room, Justin. Is this the time to be giving away more money? And this one is an interesting one. I've heard this one phrased as a loan, and I've heard that this one will be financed by the liquidation of Russian assets that we seized. Are we seriously going to do that? Is somebody seriously going to go through the inventory of all the things Russian that we've seized here in Canada and go on Facebook Marketplace? What are we going to do with that airplane sitting at Pearson Airport that apparently is costing us tens of thousands of dollars every month to just sit there? Are we going to sell that? Who's going to buy it? Is Air Canada going to buy it? And then we're going to take the money that Air Canada gives us and give it to Ukraine. Really? That's the big plan here, to give them billions more dollars? I don't get it. I really don't understand what's going on here. I don't. This questioning of Pierre Poilievre over not looking at the report. I mean, he's entitled to feel the way he feels. I'd like to hear more from the guy on this. I think he waited way too long to comment on the capital gains tax. But we'll get back to capital gains in just a sec. First off, let's bring in the former leader of the NDP, Thomas Mulcair. He was on CTV Question Period. Here's him explaining why Pierre Poilievre is smart to not look at the report. Again, this is an NDP former leader.
Good to be with you, Marcia.
So Poilievre saying he's not going to read that report. A bit confounding to some. What do you make of it?
I would never have accepted to read it either. Never. I don't want to be hamstrung as the leader of a party. I don't want to be told that now that I've seen this, I can't say that. I agree completely with the call by Pierre Poilievre.
Wow, timestamp this moment, Tom Mulcair. Really? Okay.
I mean, that's all you need to hear. Being objective, and I mean, hey, again, that's a former leader of the New Democrat Party. He said it himself. He wouldn't have looked at it either. So what's happening right now, it's very conflicting. I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't exactly know how to feel about it, including me. The truth is, it doesn't matter. If you're a conservative, you'll feel one way. If you're a liberal, you'll feel the other way, and so on and so forth. But either way, you have to agree that as a Canadian, we have a right to know what's going on with our government here. I understand taking a week or two to figure it out, but the government has had this report since March. Let's talk about capital gains. I said I would. That is one of, I'm never going to forget that. It seems like a coup d'etat. It seems like the government found an opportunity to tip off all their investor friends, the real rich, wealthy, and elite. Coming in a few weeks, we're going to change this capital gains tax, and then it's going to cost a lot more to operate a business or to live here in Canada. It's just gonna. So they had lots of time to pull their money out of Canada and move it offshore, and that's probably what the vast majority of wealthy people did. But it doesn't do anything for the average person who worked hard and bought an investment property and has been a good landlord, but now it's time to sell because they want to buy something else. Or somebody who's got a cottage in the family. Now they're going to have to pay a lot more in capital gains tax, and it's not fair. We already pay an extreme amount of tax in this country. The fact that our government is coming back to us and saying we need more and demanding it and taking it in the way that they did, it was very, very unfriendly to the middle class. And the way they did it was completely shady as well. This, as you'll remember, the capital gains was supposed to be part of the federal budget. The Conservatives said, we're not going to support the budget. We're not supporting the capital gains tax increase. So the government made it a totally separate bill. They pulled it out of the budget. They didn't even release the bill until last week. And then the very next day, once the actual bill was out with context and more on the rules and regulations and implementation, then the Conservatives came out against it. They had an opportunity there to comment in advance. They decided not to, I guess, if that's their prerogative. But it left a lot of people like me wondering, do they actually support this? Because I don't support this. Not only should we not be paying any more tax in this country than we already do, we should demand more accountability about where the current money is. Where is all the money going? Right now, a lot of it has to do with interest. We are paying millions and millions an hour interest on our debt. That's wild to me that we let things get this out of control, that we spend more on interest payments than we do on healthcare in Canada. That's messed up. Holy cow, are you kidding me? Well, what about the rest of it? Every day it's a brand new scandal, and man, is it ever getting more and more frustrating to want to be a regular middle-class person, someone who goes to work, who plays by the rules, who pays their taxes, who follows the law, maybe opens a business and employs a few people, maybe just is a good neighbor and a good citizen in the community. It's getting harder and harder to do that. You can understand why crime rates are climbing as fast as they are. It seems like it's only going to get worse, too, as more and more people struggle. And we know they're gonna. There's a ton of mortgages coming up for renewal very soon, and those people are going to be paying way more than they are right now. Can they afford that? I don't know. There's some people who have been doing this since they started raising interest rates way back in 2021. Was it 2021? Around there. You know what I mean. It's a scary time right now. Crime's getting out of control. It seems like all of our money is being wasted. We've got a government that we can't seem to get rid of. At least have an election and have a sober second thought on the way we're going. We can't get any of that. It's like nobody's listening to us. If I were in government right now, I think you guys should pay real attention to the mood of the public because it's growing very angry and impatient. Every day it's a new scandal, and it's so hard. It's so hard to be optimistic about Canada. Every time they release the updated numbers on how many Canadians left Canada and emigrated to the States, it's getting higher and higher. There's a lot of people leaving this country. Anyway, guys, I got to roll. Tomorrow, a brand new pod with Kat and I back together, and we'll get on track for the regular After Nines. Thanks for letting me spend a little time with you. Kind of venting, kind of wondering aloud. Maybe you are too. In fact, I think a lot of people are wondering what the heck is going on and how much more worse is it going to get? What's happening right now is blockbuster movie quality stuff happening in Canada. And what's going on behind closed doors? Is there a plan to release this information, or is this government just hoping to make it through the summertime and hope that we'll forget? I hope we don't forget. Stay on top of the news, everybody. Pay attention to what's going on. Have those conversations with your friends and family and neighbors. It is getting easier and easier to have these conversations. We're not as divided as we once were. Seems like a lot more topics are back on the table now, and that's good. We should be having a conversation, respectfully and civilly, about just about every topic. Have yourselves a great day.